federal government says striking lecturers in the public universities in Nigeria will not be paid for the period they have not worked to serve as a deterrent in the future. Minister of Education Adamu Adamu gave the government's position during the weekly ministerial briefing at the Presidential Villa. State House correspondent ASUU Omorwa reports.
It's been 185 days since university lecturers last taught students in Nigeria's public tertiary schools, a development that has left students, parents, and other stakeholders frustrated. The lecturers under the umbrella body, ASUU, accused the government of reneging on agreements made in the past and failing to fund the education sector adequately.
Other members of the minister's delegation.
This briefing by the Minister of Education comes barely days after the last meeting by both sides. According to the minister, while 5 of the 6 unions in the universities will in the next week call off their strike, there are no assurances here that ASUU will be doing so.
I have 6 unions I'm dealing with. ASUU, that is the Association Polytechnic. Then I have COASU, Colleges of Education Academic Staff. Then I have NASU, I have SANU, I have NAT, then I have ASUU. I had given all the unions, all the 6 of them, the offer made by government. And I want to tell you, in principle, all of them accepted it. The only exception was ASUU that gave me 2 other conditions. These 5 unions will call off the strike. But I cannot say the same for ASUU because, and let me just tell you what they are asking is, they can accept this if the federal government will agree to pay the salary for the month they have not worked. And I told them the federal government will not. The federal government is not acting arbitrarily. Before, it was some magnanimity on its part. There is a law which says if there is no work, there will be no pay for it. I believe this will be a very strong element that will deter many from going on strike.
On the thorny issue of payment platform, the lecturers seem to have scored a point in bargaining for a new payment system.
Government has not approved UTAS. What I know the last on this issue is a committee has worked and tested all the 3 platforms, IPPIS, UTAS, U3PS. And the preliminary result shows that these 2 new ones are better than IPs in so many respects. But the decision of government will depend on what ultimately is given in the report that is being readied now.
The minister was asked what happens to the students who have lost an academic calendar during the strike.
I think we are all hit by this, perhaps because they have to spend an extra year or extra 2 years. You could say they are worse hit, but it's a national problem. And I think if you had a chance or the capacity to measure the effect of that on the economy, you'll find that economy is also a victim. Parents are also victims. Some parents depend on their children passing out of school to take care of them. So I think it's a loss for the nation. Don't say it is the students alone. For the years they lost, okay, who do you assume will the federal government? No, probably you should take the leaders of striking unions to court to pay them, yes.
He says the strike by the university-based unions come in spite of the huge investment of over 2.5 trillion naira in tertiary institutions in the last 10 years from TED Fund alone, while the universities keep their internally generated funds. Away from ASUU, the minister reels out achievements in the education sector to include a reduction in the number of out-of-school children, which he puts at 6.9 million, and the expansion of the number of schools across all levels in the country. For now, the waiting continues, and it is uncertain when universities will reopen.
Meanwhile, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has described as miserable and unacceptable the latest offer made to it by the federal government. ASUU President Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke disclosed this in a statement on Thursday. The union is urging the federal government, through the Ministry of Education, to return to the new draft agreement of 2009 renegotiation committee whose work spanned a total of 5.5 years as demonstration of good faith. According to ASUU, the major reason given by the federal government for the miserly offer is the paucity of funds, and it's not tenable. And this is because of several reasons, chief of which is poor management of the economy. And this has given rise to leakages in the revenue of government at all levels. There's wasteful spending, misappropriation of funds, and outright stealing of our collective patrimony. ASUU believes that if the leakages in the management of the country's resources are stopped, there will be more than enough to meet the nation's revenue and expenditure targets without borrowing and plunging the country into a debt crisis, as the case is now. A lot to talk about, Dr. Abati, this morning.
Okay, one, I mean, universities in Nigeria have been shut down since February 14. When the strike started at the university, at the level of the universities, other tertiary institutions joined, including the Association of Polytechnics, ASUU. ASUU had suspended its strike. Now you have this year alone, for over 186 days, or maybe specifically 186 days, tertiary institutions in Nigeria have been shut down. Now, yesterday, the 47th ministerial briefing that was held at the presidential villa, we had the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, making a number of points that ASUU immediately responded to in a press release. The minister is saying that, one, the National Association of Nigerian Students should go ahead and sue ASUU, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, because it is ASUU that is responsible for the damages within the education sector. The president of the National Association of Nigerian Students has since responded to say that no, they are not aware that ASUU is the owner or the proprietor of any university and that it is government's responsibility. Second, the Minister of Education is saying that out of all the demands that have been put before government by ASUU and the remaining 5 unions, the government has tried to meet them halfway. But that the only aspect of it that government will not approve is a situation whereby they will have to be paid for 6 months of the strike, not working. Emmanuel Osodeke, president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, then responded that, okay, if we say you will not pay for the 6 months that we have been on strike, a strike that was caused by you, then of course, we too, we will not work, we will not fill up the gap that had been created. So we won't pay, we can't pay, says government, quoting Dario Fo, that's the author of that drama piece called We Can't Pay, We Won't Pay. But here we have this problem playing out in Nigeria. Now, in response, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke says that there has been an agreement with regard to collective bargaining on the ground since the time of the Shehu Shagari government. And that it is that principle that ASUU is asking, is demanding should be respected. And that this government is acting in bad faith, has refused to respect the principles of collective bargaining in line with the established law, either the Trade Union Act or every other enabling law in the country. Professor Osodeke also referred to the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement between the federal government and ASUU, led by Professor Munzali Jibril. And he said even that has been abandoned. Then on Tuesday, August 16, the federal government team met with the ASUU team to look at even the updated 2021-2022 agreement, led by Professor Nimi Briggs. And the ASUU teachers are saying, the university teachers are saying, even that agreement, what is proposed in it is unacceptable. So we have a deadlock, we have an impasse in the education sector in Nigeria. Punch newspaper today is reporting that since President Muhammadu Buhari took over government in 2015, universities have been shut down for more than one academic session. They put a figure to it. Is it 800 days or whatever? But whatever it is, the crisis in the education sector is writ large because students have been at home for more than 6 months. Government and the university teachers cannot reach any agreement. And what are the university teachers asking for? They are asking for the revitalization of universities. They are asking for academic freedom. They are asking for autonomy. They are asking for government raising the quality of the education system. They are asking that agreements reached in 2009, 2021, and 2022 from the Shagari government to the Professor Munzali Jibril committee to the Professor Nimi Briggs committee should be respected. The government is saying the increase in salary that university teachers are asking for is not possible because the cost of it will be about 1.1 trillion. Professor Osodeke and ASUU's response to that is that if you look at the leakages in the system, in the Nimi Briggs report, ASUU is recommending plug leakages, that there are too many leakages within the education system, that if you plug the leakages, then you may be able to solve the problem. ASUU is also recommending that, look, there is a consolidated university salary structure called CONWAS. They have also added to that what they call UTAS, Universities Transparency and Accountability System. But the minister was saying, well, that UTAS is not something, yes, while it is good, it's not something that government can accommodate. Government can only accommodate it if it is added to the payment system called IPIS, which is the one, that government is operating. So what we have had this week is that ASUU is on one side, government is on the other side. Both parties are digging into the trenches. Meanwhile, the problem is the future of the education system in Nigeria. Those are the issues that we have to worry about. And it is really sad that in the same presentation at the 47th ministerial briefing at the Villa, Malam Adamu, also alluded to the fact that even the Amajiri system is not working. He was calling for the cooperation of states. And of course, analysts have also pointed out that Nigeria, under this administration, between 2016 and 2022, to be specific, has not been able to meet the UNESCO threshold for investment in education. 4 to 6% of GDP, gross domestic product, in absolute terms, 15 to 20%. And at the highest that this administration has been able to do is just about 7.8% allocation to the education sector. It's not only the Buhari government that is affected by this or that is guilty of this, but the issue is that we're not paying enough attention to the education sector. No serious country that wants to compete in the future does that. In Germany, education is prioritized. Even in the UK, where A-level results just came out this week, education is a major priority. This morning in the UK, A-level results is an issue. Admissions into the universities is an issue. It's just as important as proposals to cut taxes by, the Conservative Party leadership. So I think the bottom line is that Nigeria is playing with the future of the children, of university students, of students at the tertiary level. And on top of it all, it was disclosed that we have 76 illegal universities and over 200 illegal colleges of education. So when you add all of this together, the problem with funding, the crisis with collective bargaining, then of course, the education sector in Nigeria is in peril. I think we can say that. So how do we build a future of competent, skillful Nigerians who can compete with the best and the brightest in the world if we're not focusing properly on education, which is a very important sector of the Nigerian economy?
Very well said, Dr. Apati. It is obvious that this government and other successive governments in Nigeria does not even understand the role education plays in the development of a nation. Because if they do, we'll not have series of ASUU strikes. We've been having strikes for God knows when. And it looks like a repetitive thing because the government doesn't understand. If they truly understand the role of education in society, it's not even in ASUU's place to be reminding them of how they can fix the universities and improve on research. And I'll take you to India this morning. India developed its educational system, focused on the teaching of science, technology, engineering, and maths. And today, India is reaping the rewards. Most of the CEOs of the blue chip companies in tech in America are Indians. Most of these people got their first degree from Indian universities. Satya Nadella of Microsoft, Indian. What's it called? Sundar Pichai of Google, Indian. The CEO of Twitter, Indian. In fact, most of the tech companies in America, if they don't have an Indian CEO, they probably have an Indian waiting to become the next CEO. And most of these Indians got their first degree from Indian universities. And most of these Indians helped India when India was going through its transition. Most of the monies India used to rejig economy was from the diaspora remittances of these Indians. Most of these Indians went back to their country and developed their healthcare sector. Now we travel to India for healthcare because Indians that got first degree from Indian universities, that went to the diaspora, got knowledge, came back to develop their healthcare sector. The likes of Dr. Devi Shetty, that democratized open heart surgery in India, and the likes. In Nigeria, we're beginning to see an offshoot of the same people that benefited when the government was still investing in education. The likes of Dr. Philip Bozoa, that there is a $1 million, that is doing quite well, that's got his own chain of hospitals in America, that there is a $1 million University College Ibadan. And a lot more people like that are coming back to donate and do a lot for the educational sector and the welfare and development of Nigeria. Across board in Nigeria, we have highly trained cardiothoracic surgeons that came back from America after getting their first degree in Nigeria, going abroad, but now they are in retirement age, they are coming back to fix healthcare sector in Nigeria. That's to show you the importance of healthcare. But we don't get it. It was this same country that the Minister of Labour said there's no big deal if doctors go abroad, that we have enough doctors, which the Nigerian Medical Association had to call him out for. So if government is going back and forth with ASUU, not respecting agreements, signing agreements and reneging agreements. We had a strike just last year here. And if they say the priority is, not to pay ASUU and punish ASUU, who are they punishing? They're punishing themselves. This shame is upon all of us as a nation. But most importantly, government will carry the bigger part of this shame, that will not be able to do anything for the educational sector. It is obvious now, at first, after their dilly-dally, they now see that UTAS does work. It is about time for the government to do everything to end this strike. This same minister first said it was in 2 weeks' time we'll get this sorted out. After now, he said he didn't give 2 weeks. So it just shows that we are not ready. And we keep arguing, we keep saying, there's no money. There's no money. But as of yesterday, the Minister of Finance came out to say that we are spending 18 billion daily on subsidies. How many people even buy petrol at the subsidized price? I can bet you probably only Lagos and Abuja. Other places you buy at a higher rate, at 10 naira difference. So we are spending 18 billion every day to subsidize 64 million liters of petrol for a country that has less than 15 million cars. Who are we deceiving? When there's priority there on education, where we can improve mass transportation. So we just deceive ourselves so much. And it is this deceit that we should not allow to linger on in this country. Because when this deceit lingers on, we don't get anything as a nation. The minister too was speaking. He said they've reduced out-of-school people to 6.5 million. Where did he get that data from? We would like to ask him. Because UNICEF said the number has increased to 13 or 14 million at a point. Now they are disputing the figure at about 10 million. Where did he get 6.5 million? He must show us where he empirically got that data from. So it just goes ahead to show that we don't care for education. We don't care for the development of our country. And if we don't care, there are repercussions. And that's why there are students at home. We have lost one academic session now. When is this going to stop? This will probably be rolled down the road. Maybe the next government will inherit it. We've continued with subsidy payments, 18 billion every day.
Well, the bigger concern is, as I stated yesterday, that many of these Nigerian students who have been robbed of a whole academic session, for many of them, who are just probably average persons, whatever they have learned will have been wiped out.
Yes.
And to add to the examples from India that you are talking about, Gopi Govinath, the chief economist of the International Monetary Fund, she's an Indian, and she got her first degree from the University of Delhi. But we have, Nigerians also who are doing well internationally, but they do so in spite of Nigeria. And in India, to cite India further, in the state of Kerala, that's where, they've been producing some of these tech giants and superstars that are making waves in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. Okay, where is our own equivalent of that? And it's not as if Nigeria has a shortage of talent. There's no shortage of talent. So it's very sad that government is not paying enough attention to the education sector. We've been discussing the education sector since 1955, when the Awolowo government in the Western region introduced education. In 1957, the Eastern region of Nigeria followed suit and began also to invest in education. In 1959, that was the first time that Northern leaders first met to talk about education. And so when Malam Adamu says the Amajiri system is not working, the blame is not for the government that introduced that system of a government trying to merge Western education, bring it in line with Islamic education that is referred. The bigger issue, as Malam Adamu himself identified, is that state governments, leaders of the North, they themselves, will have to pay attention to the education of persons in the North to further address the issue of security and the ready availability of recruits for terror.
Right. The chairman of the Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party, Walid Jibrin, is appealing to members of the party and Nigerians at large to remain calm over the lingering crisis currently bedeviling the party. Senator Jibrin, in a statement, says efforts are going on to reconcile the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, with the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. He said what is happening at the party should not be seen as a problem, but misunderstanding within the party. He's arguing that the members to give strong support to the President Reconciliation Committee set up to resolve all the issues. All right, Dr. Abati.
Okay, I think we discussed this topic earlier in the week when we talked about the plans to have a meeting between the Wike camp and the Atiku camp. But that did not happen. The explanation was that Governor Fintiri of Adamawa State, alongside with the presidential candidate of the PDP, they were welcoming new defectors from the All Progressives Congress, APC, into the party. And then when we discussed the issue, it was pointed out that a meeting would take place today. So it's in the interest of all the gladiators within the PDP to put their house in order. If they do not put their house in order, the cost may be very high. They will have failed to learn lessons as they failed in 2015 and as they also made the mistake in 2019. We had a PDP chieftain here, Kola Lobodinyo, or who was it now? I don't quite remember, who said that, look, this 2023 election is for the PDP to lose it or to win it. So I guess that will be the major priority as, the two camps meet with regard to the demands, what the Wike camp calls the irreducible minimum. The Wike camp wants Senator Yachi Ayu, for example, to step down in line with Section 7, subsection 3C of the PDP Constitution. But I had also pointed out on this program that Yachi Ayu is quoting sections 45 and 47 and trying to differentiate between whether, the issue is the presidential candidate coming from a particular region with the chairman, or, the elected president coming from another, the same region with the chairman of the party. But, it's their war. They have, everything at stake to win or to lose. And we're just hoping that good reason will prevail, internal democracy will be allowed, and that nobody will be harassed or intimidated on one side or the other on the basis of personal ego or ambitions. And I hope that very quickly, within the PDP, within the APC, within the other political parties, we will move beyond what I call the other day minutiae, ego conflicts that will seem to be dominating the space ahead of the 2023 elections. In the UK, they are talking about cost of living crisis. They are talking about inflation. They are talking about tax cuts. They are talking about, wages, and how inflation has eaten into wages. We are here in Nigeria. The only thing we hear is Muslim ticket. Mr. X visiting Mr. Y, or Mr. Z, making statements. Complete lack of, focus and clarity and common sense, in the political process. Even in Kenya, where they just had their elections, at least there was an attempt, to focus on the issues. We are a country of over 200 million very bright and, and smart people. And all we just talk about is, peripheral issues. That is a big problem that Nigeria faces at the moment. And I hope that by September, when the campaign officially kicks off, that there will be enough men of good reason to talk about issues and ideas, and we can evaluate them on the basis of what they intend to do about specific things. As for their political party process, all the political parties should put their house in order. I don't think we should keep, losing saliva over one camp is fighting another camp and all that. We should put Nigeria first. Nigeria is more important than the individual, preferences at the heart of Nigerian politics.
Right. The House of Representatives Ad hoc Committee on Fuel Subsidy says it discovered that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited and the Ministry of Finance have been deducting funds from petroleum profit tax and joint royalties to fund subsidy between 2018 and 2021. This as the federal government disclosed that it is currently paying 283 naira as subsidy on every litre of premium motor spirit PMS imported by the NNPC. The committee says the NNPC borrowed money from the petroleum profit tax to fund subsidies. During the investigative hearing, the Federal Inland Revenue Service distanced itself from the allegations, saying it's the sole responsibility is only tax enforcement.
They are paying DPRO JV royalty and then JV PPT. So they are borrowing these monies to fund subsidies. So the question now is that not illegal?
I have not seen any thing in the record that has been done, and except for sometimes when Mr. President gave special approval to provide for CBN to provide some funding.
We need to know the Constitution provides that money be remitted into the traditional account when the expenditure is made.
The service statutory function remain that of assessment, collection, accounting, and enforcement of payment of taxes.
No public holidays. In fact, even during the COVID-19, when there was lockdown and limited movement, the consumption rate remained the same. So, I wonder how the Honorable Minister, through the ministry, can accept this kind of figure.
Into the landing cost, projected landing cost of 448 naira per litre for 2023.
As CBN paying from the 13 billion, they paid 484 billion to independent marketers.
On the issue of the computation of 6.7 trillion for 2023, we have to do it now because we have to submit the MTEL for 2023 to 2025 now for consideration of Parliament.
Dr. Bati.
Okay, we go back to that original question about deregulation, right, of the downstream sector, and the question about whether subsidy is sustainable or not. And you recall that the Petroleum Industry Act recommending that subsidy should go. The government of the day arrived at the conclusion that, look, there will be consequences if subsidy is removed. And government decided to circumvent the law and say, okay, in 18 months, that means the evil day was postponed. And there are economists who have argued, even if some of these our economists, you know, these private jet economists that we seem to have in the majority in Nigeria, you know, talk from both sides of the mouth. But at least there seems to be some consensus around the fact that, look, the subsidy regime is not sustainable. The IMF, the World Bank, projected that in 2022 alone, Nigeria is likely to spend up to about 4 trillion on subsidy. In 2012, when the previous government wanted to remove subsidy, we could not do so. This time around, government has also said, no, we're postponing it. So that section of the Petroleum Industry Act has been put in abeyance. Now, NNPC Limited has transformed. NNPC is no longer a corporation. It used to be a corporation. It has now become a company limited by liability. So it is called NNPC Limited. Under the new terms, NNPC has said, well, it's not going to pay, take off the load of subsidy. It's a profit and loss company and answerable only to its shareholders. So that company itself is going through a transition. But here we have the Senate committee probing how much money has been spent on subsidy. It's not even that the NNPC has spent over 1 trillion. Money that could have been used for other purposes. Money that could have been used, for example, to fund education and prevent what seems to be the crisis in the tertiary sector. So, education sector. So sooner or later, the indication of all of this is that we will need to still deal with the subsidy problem. Now, NNPC also borrows money. You recall that when NNPC wanted to take a 20% stake in the Dangote refineries that we're still waiting for, 650,000 barrels per day, and on which, you know, many Nigerian policy wonks are basing their hopes for, demand and supply balance in the downstream sector in Nigeria. NNPC said it will have to borrow. Sometime last year, NNPC also went to Afrexim Bank to go and borrow money. About $3.5 billion, which they said they wanted to use it to upscale operations, attract investment, and address challenges within the sector. So nobody should express any surprise that so much money has been spent on a subsidy, because that is the reality, the failure of policy in Nigeria, the lack of courage on the part of government to deal with this subsidy problem. On top of all of that is the failure of Nigeria to even meet its production quota. NNPC enjoyed up to this moment, and I hope, even still, beyond now, a certain monopoly that should have been addressed, that has not been addressed. But maybe under the new dispensation, it won't happen. And then you have the challenge of crude oil theft. There was a report yesterday of a ship laden with Nigerian crude, unaccounted for, on the high seas, that was intercepted. And if you check the list of the nationalities of the persons involved, you will see that with regard to crude oil theft, this country is in very serious trouble. So there are many dimensions to it, but I hope that the promise by the new NNPC that the emphasis going forward will be on transparency and accountability. I hope that will help, and that whatever findings the Senate committee comes up with, we'll provide ideas as to check it. But whatever they are complaining about, there's so much money on subsidy and all of that, they should look at the policy end of it and the inability of successive governments to deal with the problem.
I mean, very well said, Dr. Abati. I don't even know where to start from. It is just obvious that this subsidy thing is a drain pipe. And when you look at it, even taxes that the NNPC was supposed to remit, that's what they borrowed now. How can you borrow the taxes you're supposed to remit? That's why when the FIRS was called into the matter, they said this is just for enforcement and all of that. But they are borrowing these taxes to pay subsidy. NNPC too has not also remitted money to FAC. Over 60% of the revenue used to service states and all that are now coming from FIRS, taxes. So predominantly it's safe to say that in a while, NNPC have not put money in the pot, all in the name of this subsidy. And yet, this subsidy is very nebulous because you are paying 283 naira per litre. What are you telling us invariably? 18 billion per day for 64 million litres. Let Nigerians go and challenge amount of litres. Is that 64 million litres also part of the millions of litres that is taken away, driven away in tankers to Cotonou, where our fuel is being sold for cheap? And Niger? Is it Nigerians that are consuming the 64 million litres? As of 2019, we had 11.8 million registered cars. Year on year, every year, at least 300,000 to 400,000 cars are bought. Most of them, Tokumbo. Less than, Tokumbo means fairly used second-hand vehicles. Less than 10 or 20,000 of these are Nigerian-made cars, are new cars. Or 40,000 of these cars are new cars. So if we are saying we are adding 300,000 to 400,000 new cars every year, 11.8 from 3 years ago, Nigeria doesn't have up to 15 million cars yet on the roads. So is it those 15 million cars that are consuming, and probably add with a chump change of other examples, my neighbor generators and motorcycles, are those that are consuming 64 million litres every day? But we see our fuel being sold for cheap. So the stealing now is a double whammy. People are driving our tankers over the border to sell our fuel for cheap because they know they will make quick arbitrage. Also, you were talking about the tanker. They are stealing the crude, they are stealing the refined oil we're importing. You were talking about the tanker. Dr. Abachi, that vessel was carrying 3 million barrels. 3 million barrels. The cost of that vessel was $300 million. That was what was intercepted of crude, stolen, $300 million being carried away. So that means nobody can tell me otherwise. Crude oil theft is an organized crime in this country. And it takes rich people to be able to do it. Do you know the maintenance cost of that vessel? Do you know how much they will pay to service that vessel and the crew on board? So this is the only one we saw, $300 million. Imagine how many more that have been taken away like that we didn't see. In just one attempt, we saw $300 million worth of our crude being taken away. We are not investigating that. On top of that, we are paying subsidy that is very nebulous. Then people are crying. Then there's inflation. You see, our leaders in Nigeria owe Nigerians an apology. They need to apologize to Nigerians for, I'm serious.
Is it apology that we need?
Apology
and do the right thing?
And restitution and doing the right thing. And those that are found wanting should face the full music of the law. Because we can't continue this way. The country is already on its knees. The country is already on its knees. Apology first, then restitution, then those found wanting must face the full wrath of the law. Because this is broad daylight stealing. We can't account for anything any longer. The maths don't add up. It doesn't make sense.
Well, let's hope that the NNPC transition will address the problem, because they're talking about petroleum profit tax, PPT, and also about joint venture royalties. Maybe within the new dispensation at the NNPC, the problem will be addressed. And then we'll be talking about where we were when the rain started beating us. So we'll see what happens hereafter.
Hopefully.
And what the next government does. Because there are some of the presidential candidates who have been saying they think that the NNPC transition is opaque, they will revisit it and all that. I hope it will not be a return to the era of real opaqueness.